Christian and I don't want to, make you think that it's something else and then you start reading it and you're uncomfortable or anything like that. So I'm just going to be upfront and honest. And it's totally fine. I totally get it. I've read 5 chapters now. Oh no, I've read 4 chapters so far. I'm on chapter 5 now. So if you haven't, or the other chapters and you want to, I have a playlist. So you can go find that. And yeah, I'm just going to be reading this. I also want to say it is only like 9 at night, and I usually make these videos way later, like at midnight, because everybody's in bed, but it was really quiet, so I am praying and hoping that I can do this without a bunch of noise right now, because I'm always tired, and that's why sometimes it's just harder for me to film, basically. I mean, it's easier for me to film at midnight because there's no noise, but harder because I'm tired. So I'm already hearing some walking. Okay, so I'm not sure if I will be reading 1 or 2 chapters. It kind of just depends how long it takes me to finish one. But it's about a boy that, or not a boy, it's a man that dies and goes to heaven and then he comes back, so. And he's telling his story, and this is a true story. Okay, so chapter 5, Earth to Hospital. And it always starts with like a little verse. It says, "But they were looking for a better place, a heavenly homeland. That is why God is not ashamed to be called their God, for he has prepared a heavenly city for them." Hebrews 11:16. I'm not certain what the world record is for exiting a wrecked car, but Dick Honorecker must have surely broken it that Wednesday afternoon when a dead man began to sing with him. Dick scrambled out of that smashed car and raced over to the nearest EMT. "That man's alive. He's not dead. He's alive." Who would have believed him? A preacher had started to pray for a man who had been dead for an hour and a half. Then he dashed across the road shouting, "That man has come back to life." The EMT stared. "He's alive." The dead man started singing with me. The words didn't make sense as Dick thought of them later, but he could only keep yelling, "He's singing, he's alive." "Oh, really?" A paramedic asked. "I'm serious, this man's alive. We're medical professionals. We know a dead guy when we see him. That guy is dead. I'm telling you, that man just sang with me. He's alive. The justice of the peace is on his way here." He explained that although they knew I was dead, they couldn't move my body until someone in authority actually declared me dead. "But I can tell you this much, he is dead." The man turned away from Dick and refused to go over to the car. Several ambulances had already arrived and departed. I'm gonna move this. Okay. Dick walked up in front of the remaining ambulance and said to the driver, "That man is alive. Go look at him." The EMT began to act as if he handled feeble-minded people all the time. "Please, we know our business. That man is. Listen to me. I'm going to lie down on this bridge, and if you don't come over here, you're going to have to run over me. He's dead." "Then humor me. Just feel his pulse," Dick pleaded. "Okay, we'll check on him for you," the man said, mumbling under his breath. He walked over to the car, raised the tarp, reached inside, and found my right arm. He felt my pulse. Everyone system was in shock, so I felt no pain. Not then, anyway. That came later. They laid me on a gurney and started to roll me towards the ambulance. A light mist sprayed my face, and I saw nothing except the superstructure of the bridge above me. I was unable to move my head. I heard people walking around and glass crunching under their feet. They kept their voices low, so I had trouble following what they were saying. I remember thinking, something terrible has happened here, and I think it's happened to me. Even when I knew they were moving me into the ambulance, I felt weightless. I don't remember anything about the ambulance ride, but later I learned that we went to 2 hospitals, both of which were little more than rural clinics. There's nothing we can do for him, I heard one doctor say as he examined me. He's not going to make it. You may have gotten him out of the car alive, but it won't do any good. He's past hope. They put me back into the oh my gosh, I keep stuttering. They put me back inside the ambulance and drove away. I vaguely remember when they pulled up at the Huntsville Hospital, a fairly large regional medical center. It was about 2:30 p.m. By then, the authorities had notified my wife, Eva. She teaches school, and someone had called the school to tell her about the accident. Someone else called the school where her 3 children attended. Church members picked up our children and took them to their homes to keep them until they heard from Eva. No one knew then that I had died hours earlier. For the first hours after I returned to Earth, they had no idea how extensive my injuries were. Even though they knew nothing specific, church people began to pray for my recovery. They called others to join with them. Eva found out I had died from Dick on Wrecker almost 2 weeks after the accident on one of Dick's visits to see me in the hospital. It was only then she understood just how bad it had been. Also, by that time, our insurance agents, Ann Dillman, a member of South Park, had brought pictures of the wreckage after it had been moved from the bridge. Eva says it was quite some time before she really understood how bad it was. She says she probably didn't pay attention to the bad news on purpose because she was trying to focus on immediate matters at hand. Our children, other family members, and friends then began to piece together just how horrendous the accident was and how close I came to not surviving it. One of the EMTs said, "We're here now, you're going to be alright." I was aware of being wheeled into the hospital. I stared uncomprehendingly at a large number of people who pulled back to make space and watched the gurney roll past them. Faces stared down at me and our eyes met for a split second as the gurney kept moving. They took me into a room where a doctor was waiting for me. It's strange, but the only thing I recall about the doctor who examined me was that he was bald. He spent quite a while checking me over. "Mr. Piper, we're going to do everything we can to save you." He must have said 3 times. "You're hurt bad, seriously hurt, but we'll do all we can." Despite his words, I later learned that he didn't expect me to survive, but he did everything he could to give me hope and urge me to fight to stay alive. Several people moved around me. They were obviously trying to save my life, but I still felt no pain. It was like living in some kind of twilight state where I could feel nothing and remained only vaguely aware of what went on around me. "We have your wife on the phone," someone said. They patched her through on the telephone to the emergency room. A nurse laid the phone beside my ear, and I remember talking to Eva, but I can't recall one word either of us said. Eva remembers the entire conversation. According to her, the only thing I said was, "I'm so sorry this happened." "It's okay, Dawn, it's not your fault." Over and over I kept saying, "I'm so sorry, I just want to come home. Please bring me home." In some kind of childlike way, I suppose I felt that if I couldn't be in my heavenly home, I wanted to be back in my earthly one. I was alert enough to know that they wanted to transport me on a life flight helicopter to Herman Hospital Trauma Center in Houston, but they decided that the weather was too bad and the cloud ceiling too low, so their helicopter couldn't take off. My condition was deteriorating rapidly, and they didn't know if I was going to survive the afternoon. Despite that, the medical team had a magnificent decision. The medical team made a significant decision. They decided to put me back inside an ambulance for the 80-mile trip to Houston. They didn't have the facilities to take care of me. Herman Hospital was the only place for me if I was to have any chance to survive. fresh odors of a new vehicle, especially the fresh paint. "You're our first patient," the attendant said as we drove away. "What? You're the first one to ever ride in this ambulance," he said. "We're going to take you to Houston. We'll get you there as fast as we can." "How fast do I go?" the driver asked the attendant, who sat next to me. "As fast as you can." "How fast is that?" the driver asked again. "Put the pedal to the metal. We've got to get there now." Before we started the trip, I still felt no pain. I was in and out of consciousness. I felt weightless, as if my mind had no connection with my body. However, about 10 minutes down the road, a slight throbbing began. At first, I became aware of a tiny pain in my left arm. Then my left leg throbbed. My head started to ache. Within minutes, I hurt in so many places. I couldn't localize any of it. My entire body groaned in agony and screamed for relief. The full force of the trauma invaded my body. It felt as if every part of my body had been wounded, punched, or beaten. I couldn't think of a single spot that didn't scream out in pain. I think I cried out, but I'm not sure. Every beat of my heart felt like sledgehammers pounding every inch of my body. "You've got to do something, please," I finally pleaded. That much I remember. "Medicine, just something, do. I've given you all I can." "You've given me all you can." His words didn't make sense. If they'd given me medications, why was I feeling so much pain? "Please." "I can't let you go unconscious," the attendant said. "You have to remain awake." "Please, just something, too." I couldn't understand why I had to remain awake. "If they just knock me out, the pain will go away. Please," I begged again. "I'm sorry, I really am, but I can't give you anything else. You've already had enough to throw most people into a coma. You're a fairly big guy, but I just can't let you go unconscious." I'm sure I whimpered, moaned, or even screamed several times during the rest of the torturous ride. The vehicle rocked back and forth in and out of traffic, and the entire time the siren blared. It was the most painful, nightmarish trip of my life. Even now, I can close my eyes and feel the ambulance vibrating and bumping on the shoulder of the road as it took the curves. One of the EMTs said something about rush hour traffic just getting heavy, so I assumed it must have been around 5. Momentarily, I wondered how it could be so late in the day. The drive seemed interminable, although I think I passed out several times from the pain. We finally arrived at the emergency room in Houston at Herman Hospital. It was 6:20 p.m. 6.5 hours had passed from the time of the accident. By the time I reached the hospital in Houston, thousands of people were praying. They spread the word so that members in hundreds of churches also prayed for my recovery. For the next few days, word spread about my injuries and more people prayed. Over the years, I've met many of those who asked God to spare my life. Perhaps some of you reading this book prayed for my survival and recovery. I can only add that the prayers were effective. I lived, and I am still alive. As the EMTs lifted my gurney out of the ambulance, I spotted Eva's face. Next to her stood a deacon from the church. I felt as if they were looking at some lost puppy, given my pathetic appearance. They were amazed, gawking, but saying nothing. Eva stared at me. Until that moment, I had been only vaguely aware of what was going on with my body. The pain had not abated, but I still had not reasoned out that I had been in an accident. It didn't occur to me that I was dying. As I stared into her face, I recognized the anguish in her eyes. She probably said something to try to comfort me. I don't know. What stays with me is that I sensed her pain and that she feared I wouldn't live. That's when I knew I must have been in really bad shape, and I was. My chest had already turned purple, and medics had bandaged almost every part of my body. Tiny pieces of glass were embedded in my face, chest, and head. I was aware that tiny shards had fallen out of my skin and rested on the gurney next to my head. No one had to tell me that I looked hideous. Anyone who knew me wouldn't have recognized me. I wondered how Eva had known who I was. My pain was off the scale. Once inside the trauma center, a nurse gave me a shot of morphine and then followed up with several more shots. Nothing helped, nothing dulled the pain. Shortly after my arrival at Herman, they sent me to surgery, where I remained for 11 hours. Under anesthesia, I finally felt no pain. Our dear friend Cliff McCardle valiantly stayed with Eva throughout the day. I don't know if that's how you pronounce that word. Cliff, my best friend, David Gentiles, and I had been ministry friends since our graduation from seminary and remain close to this day. By the time I was conscious again, it was 13 Thursday morning. Jeez. When I opened my eyes, somehow I knew that I had become the first patient in a newly opened ICU pod. One nurse was cleaning my wounds while another was putting me into traction. I could feel that she was putting rods between my ankle and my arm. I heard myself scream. Ooh. We've done an MRI on you, the doctor said. Until then, I wasn't aware that he was also in the room. You're very seriously injured, but the good news is that you have no head or thoracic injuries. At the time, I didn't care where my injuries were. The throbbing pains were racing through my body. I hurt more than I thought was humanly possible. I just wanted relief. When Dick Onerecker came to see me 2 weeks after the accident, I had just been moved from the ICU to a hospital room. He told me about God telling him to pray for me, and that he had done that for several minutes. The best news is that I don't have any brain damage or any internal injuries, I said. Dick chuckled. Of course you don't. That's what God told me to pray for, and God answered. You believed that? You believed that God would answer that prayer? Yes, I did, he said. I know with all the other injuries you had incurred that God was going to answer my prayer. It took a few seconds for me to absorb what he'd said. From the force and intensity of the impact, I would have had internal injuries. Even the doctor had commanded in amazement that I had neither head nor thoracic injuries. I'll tell you this, I said. I know I had internal injuries, but somewhere between the bridge and this hospital, I don't anymore. Tears ran down Dick's face, and he said, I know. I wish I could pray like that all the time. So that was chapter 5. And yeah, thank God nobody was ridiculously loud when I started recording. I didn't know if they would stay quiet, but my family did. And yeah, I'm gonna try to remember to keep up with this book. I know some people really like it and really want me to continue reading. I just get lost in other videos, so yeah, if I ever, fall off it again, and it takes me a while to make a video like this, just comment and just say hey, we want this, or I want this video, so I can be reminded. And yeah, I'm really excited to read through this whole thing, although I'm a little not confused but questioning, because we already heard how he went to heaven and came back already, and we're right here and there's still that much left. So I'm like, how much more could there be? I mean, it is a pretty short